Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Affordability is a huge issue for all British Columbians. British Columbians can just not afford to have another surprise cost just to be able to get to work or go to school. The NDP has repeatedly promised British Columbians that they will not implement road pricing, yet TransLink is facing a funding crisis and with a promise that they'll receive a new funding tool. And quite frankly, given the record with this government on Bill 7, which we're currently debating in this legislature, it's not hard to imagine why we cannot trust this government. So I will give this Premier an opportunity to stand and confirm today. Will he commit that his government, over the term of this session, that his government will not implement road pricing in any form, and that he will not be giving TransLink the tool to implement road pricing in British Columbia?
Premier.
That's an easy. That's an easy question. No, we won't be doing those things. In fact, we're the government that took the tolls off the bridges with the leader of the opposition. And when they were going to build another new bridge, or the Massey, they were going to toll that bridge too. We're the government that reduced ICBC rates for British Columbians. 5 ICBC rates, putting $600 back in drivers' pockets, supporting them with the cost of living. Rates have been flat for 4 years after we reformed ICBC, with reforms, by the way, that the Leader of the Opposition opposed and continues to oppose. Honourable Speaker, we'll take the steps to make sure life is affordable for British Columbians and deliver for them.
Leader of the Official Opposition, supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's nice to hear that they aren't going to consider that, although I didn't quite get that clear commitment. But regardless of that, most British Columbians in this province are within $200 of not being able to pay their bills on a monthly basis. And yet, a vehicle levy that could cost more than $200 annually is now being considered. In 2021, the Minister of Finance, or 2001, I should say, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Transportation rejected the idea of a levy, saying people are already paying enough. Now, 24 years later, when prices have gone absolutely through the roof, we're refusing to hear that same commitment. The government abandoned the plan in the year 2001 because, in its own words, and I quote, "The public has said loud and clear they don't want it," end quote. So once again, to this Premier, given TransLink's challenge in its budget, will this Premier commit today that he will not bring in a road pricing levy, a vehicle pricing levy, and that TransLink will not be given the tool to also bring in a vehicle levy on British Columbians?
Premier.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. There's only one individual in this House that stood with a government that put tolls, an additional 40% in ICBC charge cost increases when he was in government, and that's the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Speaker. He stands in this House and he fearmongers on road pricing and vehicle levies and other things, which explicitly we are not doing. And yet, despite the fact that we continue to reduce costs for drivers in this province, he continues to vote against them. He went to Ottawa, Honourable Speaker, to lobby. And what did he lobby for? Increased salaries for politicians, Honourable Speaker. He went to Ottawa to lobby, Honourable Speaker. What did he lobby for? He said that renewable energy was unicorn farts, Honourable Speaker. $6 billion worth of unicorn farts. $3 billion in capital investments for First Nations, renewable energy in this project on just one call for power, and the Minister of Energy has announced another one today. You won't get this province ahead by insulting the core industries that built this place. You won't get this province ahead by double dipping on salaries, member for Langley Walnut Grove, by advocating for higher salaries for politicians, what you'll get, if you want to build this province, is a government that is committed to the priorities of British Columbians, building schools and hospitals faster, something the Leader of the Opposition is also opposed to, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Kamloops Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the Premier didn't answer the question directly. He wandered all over the map, and he did reference a heckle, but he didn't actually answer the question directly, and it's a pretty straightforward question. It was a relatively straightforward answer he gave on road pricing, but not on vehicle levies. So again, I appreciate the Premier may want to have a little flourish after his initial answer, but if he could stick to the actual question in his original first few words, is this government contemplating, very clearly contemplating, a vehicle levy as the additional revenue source for TransLink, or are they contemplating allowing TransLink to have the legislative capability to impose a vehicle levy, and is that the funding source that they keep talking about of this mystery new funding for TransLink?
Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I appreciate the question from the other side of the House. We've made it clear. I've made it clear. The Premier's made it clear. We will not be introducing road pricing into the province of British Columbia. But thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, it's really interesting to hear the heckling from the other side, Honourable Speaker, because during the election campaign, their solution to the
Please continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Members, if you are interested in listening to that answer, let him speak.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We know from the opposition that when it comes to transit and long-term sustainable funding, Honourable Speaker, they have no answers, Honourable Speaker, because they don't recognize the importance of transit to our economy in British Columbia. They don't recognize the importance, Honourable Speaker, in terms of being able to provide transit-oriented development so that people can buy affordable places to live and have alternatives to using motor vehicles, Honourable Speaker, which is what the public has been asking for, what the business community has been asking for, Honourable Speaker, and is what is just plain common sense, Honourable Speaker, something missing from that side of the House. What we have committed to do, Honourable Speaker, with the latest agreement with TransLink, which saw the province put $312 million to cover their operating funds with equal contribution from the local governments, Honourable Speaker, is to look at what other alternative sources will ensure the long-term sustainability when it comes to the operations of TransLink. Because we know, Honourable Speaker, that they have declining gas tax revenues that have come about through, one, more fuel-efficient vehicles, one, more people taking transit, and two, the growth of electric vehicles. They are saying we need to make up those shortfalls in order to maintain the transit system and expand the transit system, which we need in this province, Honourable Speaker. We have no preconceived ideas as to what those solutions will be, but we have committed to work with TransLink to ensure that we can put in place operational sustainability for TransLink and also recognize that affordability is key to doing that, and we will do just that.
Kamloops Centre supplemental.
Talk about no answers, Mr. Speaker. So we'll try for a third time. The minister answered about road pricing. This will be the third question now without a clear answer, apparently, by this government around vehicle levies. Now, this is a government that has cut $2 billion out of their revenue with carbon tax. We're starting to see changes that pays for on all sorts of green transit initiatives and active transportation and a whole wide range. EV vehicle rebates, all those things. The government are the ones that said there would be a new funding source for TransLink. The question, been asked twice today, so this is the third time, is very clear. Is that new funding source going to be a vehicle levy, Or will the government commit today that they will not impose a vehicle levy, nor will they allow TransLink the legislative ability to bring in a vehicle levy for their new funding revenue?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I've made it clear. We're going to work with TransLink on what are sustainable solutions, Honourable Speaker.
Members. Minister will continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's funny the member from Abbotsford said it sounds like a yes to him, because when I look at the statements that the member sitting right behind him, the member from Surrey Serpentine, who, calm down, member, apparently supported a mobility tax, Honourable Speaker, when the member was mayor and sat on the board, and said what fundamentally the Commission has done is really getting us out of the gate with a very difficult discussion, but one that needs to be had. The member was one of several mayors at the meeting who expect general support for the concept of mobility pricing, Honourable Speaker. Express support.
Members come to order.
Actually, Honourable Speaker. Actually, Honourable Speaker, what the opposition needs to get ready for is for a government that is committed to ensuring long-term sustainable funding for TransLink, Honourable Speaker, getting ready for a government that will continue to invest in transit, Honourable Speaker, such as the $5.9 billion being built on the south side of the Fraser, the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain station, Honourable Speaker. I don't see any one of them on that side saying don't build it. I don't see any one of them on that side saying don't give us more buses, Honourable Speaker. I don't see any one of them on that side not asking to expand transit in their communities across the province, Honourable Speaker. It's got to be funded, but it's got to be funded affordably, and we will work with local government to do just that.
Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. For many years, health experts and advocates, all parties committees of this House and former members of this caucus have been calling for a comprehensive overhaul of BC's Mental Health Act. This outdated legislation has been criticized for violating human rights and failing to address mental health and substance use disorders with evidence and compassion. Last week, this Premier promised to at last overhaul the Act. So far, we haven't heard a plan for what this process will look like. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Premier, when you committed to reviewing BC's Mental Health Act, how did you envision this work would be undertaken and completed?
Minister of Health.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. And yeah, I can't begin this answer without just acknowledging again some of the circumstances that have brought us to this place and the devastating and horrific tragedy that our province experienced at the Lapu Lapu Festival. And our focus right now continues to be making sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that people are receiving the right supports. And I know that people want action, Mr. Speaker, and I completely agree. That's why our actions will continue to be around building out the continuum of care that people need to find the supports they need for their mental health, and, Mr. Speaker, initiating a review and a modernization of the Mental Health Act. Mr. Speaker, I've directed my staff to come back to me with the options that I need to consider about how we are going to undertake that review and that modernization. This is not a small piece of work. I take this incredibly seriously. I recognize the urgency, but I also recognize the importance of doing it right. So when we know more about that scope and timeline, I'll have a lot more to say to this House, and I look forward to the participation and collaboration with all members of this House in this incredibly important piece of work. Thank you.
Leader of the third party supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the Minister. I'm heartened to hear that this can be a multi-partisan effort. As we know, BC's Mental Health Act was passed in 1964 and hasn't been substantially updated since the 90s. This outdated legislation was created in a time where mental health challenges were treated as moral failings, where the appropriate response was deemed to be punishment, coercion, forced medication, and electroconvulsive therapy. 60 years after the Act first passed, 30 years since it was substantially reviewed, our world and understanding of mental health, we can all agree, has changed dramatically. This legislative overhaul must not repeat the mistakes of the past. How will the Premier ensure that people with lived and living experience are at the centre of this work to ensure BC's new Mental Health Act doesn't cause more harm than good?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you again to the member for the question. And I agree completely that it is so important to have the experience of people with lived and living experience as part of this work, just as it will be equally important to work with First Nations. And of course, any review of an act like this must be done under our obligations that we've made under the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. Mr. Speaker, that's why it's important that we take this work deliberately, carefully, and thoughtfully. That is my commitment to this House to do that. I recognize the urgency with which people want to see action when it comes to mental health and continuing to build out the continuum of supports. And my commitment is to continue to do just that, Mr. Speaker, whether it's bolstering the education that we're doing with children and youth, adding more foundry centres for youth to be able to access, providing counselling supports for people at free or low cost. Mr. Speaker, we know that thousands and thousands of people have accessed those supports. I'm also quite heartened to have this discussion here today because I recognize that it is Mental Health Week from May 5th to May 12th, and I encourage all MLAs, all members of this House to be active participants in their communities, talking to people about reducing the stigma, in talking about the challenges that people face, and that we all continue to work on this together. Thank you.
Member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Premier's push to fast-track projects is now facing direct criticism from Indigenous leadership. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs warned that fast-tracking in response to U.S. tariffs risks, and I quote, watering down the environmental assessment process, end quote. Mr. Speaker, why does this NDP Premier continue down this path despite direct warnings from Indigenous leadership in British Columbia?
Minister of Infrastructure.
Honourable Speaker, our commitments under the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act are incredibly important, and it is absolutely understandable that our critical partners, First Nations, UBCIC, and other partners would want assurances that we are continuing to be committed to those commitments. That is why in Bill 15, the Infrastructure Project Act, we expressly state under Section 20 that our obligations under DRIPA cannot be affected by any measures under the Infrastructure Projects Act. That is there to provide greater assurance and to confirm our continued commitment to DRIPA.
Member supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, but the concerns are still clearly there. In addition to this, the UBCIC has said, and I quote, additionally, UBCIC is concerned the province is not upholding its own interim process on alignment of laws with UNDRIP or UNDRIP itself, end quote. Why is this NDP Premier abandoning respectful consultation related to any and all resource projects?
Minister.
So much, Honourable Speaker. I think we've answered the member's question earlier by explaining that in Section 20 of
Member, we should not be talking about the contents of the bill which is in front of the House.
Very well. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to canvass this question in greater detail during second reading debate as well as committee stage of the bill. What I can say is that our commitment to the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples continues to be paramount to everything that our government does.
Member for Abbotsford Mission.
Mr. Speaker, in this government's budget speech, they promised to fast-track projects and bring certainty right across British Columbia. Instead, the Premier's direction is triggering warnings of legal chaos. Former federal Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould said, quote, "My prediction, more lawsuits from proponents and First Nations, more uncertainty, and poor economic and environmental outcomes," end quote. Will the Premier admit that his direction is creating more legal risks, not less, and that he is risking setting reconciliation and investment back?
Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Our government is committed to getting things built, the things that our communities need, schools that our students need to attend, hospitals that provide critical services to communities. And we have heard time and time again that although we are making the single largest investment in critical public infrastructure in BC history, we need to find ways to deliver that critical infrastructure more quickly. I understand that the members have concerns about a bill that is before the House. I'm happy to canvass those concerns during second reading of the debate and through committee stage of the debate. But I assure that the members that our commitment to environmental standards, to the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People Act, and to delivering for British Columbians the public infrastructure that they need is paramount to our work.
Member for Richmond Centre.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. A vehicle isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for families, workers, and young people. As we've heard earlier, British Columbians are only $200 away from not being able to pay their bills and cannot afford an electric vehicle. Yet, this government mandated 100% EV sales by 2035 with $500,000 fine and 6 months of jail time just for selling a gas car. So will this NDP Premier listen to the practical needs of British Columbians and repeal their heavy-handed zero-emission vehicle mandate before people are priced out of transportation?
Minister of Energy.
Well, I just will refer the member to the outstanding response from the member of Surrey to his bill this morning as a strong response to what he's saying. I would note, Honourable Speaker, that the government in its climate action supports the low carbon fuel standards, which not only reduces emissions, but creates jobs in places like Prince George. They're against it. It promotes and supports electrification, and our electrification policy supports wind projects all across the province, especially in rural and remote communities in different regions. They're against it. Honourable Speaker, they're against it, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, as noted, Honourable Speaker, we had a debate and we'll be having a vote tonight on the EV mandate. Regardless of that, the member for Kamloops, maybe he can heckle his own member now, Honourable Speaker. So that debate has occurred. That's before the House. But I would say this, Honourable Speaker, that electric vehicles are good for British Columbia. They're good for our environment. Allowing people greater access to them is good for us and will continue to be good for us, not for other reasons. Then we produce electricity in this province. We are electrifying this province, and we import gasoline. It's import substitution. It's great for our economy. It's great for our environment. We have a difference of opinion. They're opposed to any measure, Honourable Speaker, that would deal with the fight against climate change. That's not our view. That's a difference between us and them, and we believe those measures also build our economy.
Member, if you wish to ask a supplemental question, make sure it's not about the contents of the bill already in front of the House.
Yep, for sure, Mr. Speaker. Well, the minister can actually glorify all the achievement all at once, but either the minister isn't understanding the reality or is refusing to be transparent about it. It's just in about 3 months, more than a quarter of all new vehicles sold in BC must be zero emission. In the ministry-owned EV report, sales are declining, not rising. And BC will not meet its target. And now they even scrapped the EV rebate. So my question is not about my bill. Will the minister publicly apologize if they cannot meet their own target?
Minister.
Well, Honourable Speaker, the last target was met by the government. I would say that on EVs, we are leading Canada. number one in Canada. Number one in Canada. Honourable Speaker, that's presumably not good enough for the number two party in this legislature, Honourable Speaker. But I would say, Honourable Speaker, EV sales are EVs and electric vehicles, which are clearly the wave of the future, are, Honourable Speaker, an opportunity for people in their own lives to address climate change, but more importantly, to purchase outstanding vehicles that will serve them well and serve our economy well. As noted, Honourable Speaker, this is a province that produces electricity, and we're going to produce more. Today we announced, Honourable Speaker, a significant call for power that's going to drive the production of electricity in BC. They're against it, Honourable Speaker. They're against it, Honourable Speaker. They're against every single measure that's taken against climate change. I'm not surprised they're against this one, but we're going to continue to take action to build our economy and to address climate change.
Member for Kootenay Rocky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Premier and government have already walked away from all of their environmental commitments. They've walked away from the carbon tax, and now they're walking away from Clean BC. To this Premier, do you think that it's time to walk away from these unfair EV mandates as well, and will you actually vote against them today?
Minister, it's again about the contents of the bill in front of the House. Minister wishes not to answer, you don't have to answer.
Honourable Speaker, I just note that the
Members, it's a minister's prerogative. If he wants to answer, he will answer.
Well, Honourable Speaker, the member declared that we are walking away from Clean BC and walking away from climate action. Quite the opposite is true. The only party in British Columbia that is against climate action is the Conservative Party, Honourable Speaker. On a day when we announced one of the most significant steps to electrification of our economy, something they oppose, Honourable Speaker. When we announced, Honourable Speaker, recently wind projects, which they oppose, Honourable Speaker, I would note, Honourable Speaker, that in the United States, for example, in Texas, for example, in Iowa, for example, they lead on wind projects. Is the new slogan of the Conservative Party too right-wing for Texas?
Member for Surrey White Rock.
Wow. You know, we all know that reality and transparency is not this government's strong suit, but today it is clearly on full, absolute display. We ask a question about vehicle levies, and we get a Fred Astaire performance over there. Not 3 times, and he can't even muster up an answer. We ask questions about EV targets. Again, nothing. Nothing.
Members.
Sensitive over there today, and I get why.
Let the member ask a question,
understand.
please. Member, please
Listen,
continue. Member will continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the challenge is this. When this government's asked straightforward questions, they can't give a straightforward answer. So to the minister, does he stand beside the current targets, the targets that people are paying for right now, the targets that Stratas are paying for right now to equip their units to make sure that they have charging stations, legislation that this province has put in? Does this Minister of Energy stand by the EV targets that they have, yes or no?
Minister of Energy.
Honourable Speaker, I am, of course, impressed
Members, please.
I think it is challenging, Honourable Speaker, to ask 4 out of...
Members. Minister will continue.
No, it is, you know, we get time to prepare for question period. It is difficult and challenging to ask multiple out-of-order questions in a row, Honourable Speaker. But that's okay. The member from Surrey South is new to this House, or new to his party anyway, Honourable Speaker, and I think that it's interesting to hear his questions. Here are the facts of the matter. We have had EV targets, that those targets have been met up to now, that we continue, Honourable Speaker, to work hard to promote EV sales in our province, and that unlike the opposition, which is opposed to electrification, opposed to electric vehicles, opposed to the low-carbon fuel standard, opposed, Honourable Speaker, to the output-based pricing system, opposed, Honourable Speaker, to Clean BC, opposed to wind projects, opposed, Honourable Speaker, to every possible action we could take on climate change. We're going to have a vote in this legislature later today, and they will get a clear answer then, Honourable Speaker.
The bell ends the question period.